Alright, everybody, welcome to another week of discussions here for Game Wisdom Live. We're still trying to come up with a catchy name for these streams, so let us know if you have any in the comments below. But as always, I am Josh Bycer, and this is going to be for the week of December 8th, 2019. My co-host is indie game developer Shark. How are you doing this week?
I'm doing great. We have made despite Discord's, flub there on not letting us use Discord there right when it was time for my developer chat. Despite all that, the developer chat went over really well. We didn't have as many people show up as I would have hoped, but it was pretty mind blowing for a lot of people. You've seen a couple of things recently from it. There was a ton other things we showed, but those were two of the things that people really liked. And I think it went over well. Despite the whole Discord thing.
Mm-hmm. One day without Discord, and we all lost our minds.
Yeah, I mean, it would happen. It's like the dev chat, I think, was scheduled at 3 p.m., right? And I like to send out, advance notice to, several people who come, like an hour before. Well, an hour before the dev chat is right when the Discord died.
Mm-hmm.
And then it didn't come in until like 20 minutes after I was supposed to start. And then everybody had been scattered to the wind because they're not on Discord anymore. So we had to sit there and wait like an hour or so for people to show up. It was a mess, but luckily that mess in the end did recover into a amazing dev chat. I think it might have been our best dev chat yet.
Nice. Yeah, for me this week, it's been another very busy week of calling more libraries and setting things up for 2020. I got a new presentation confirmed. I'm going all the way to the northern point of New Jersey in a few months. This will be my first time up there. It's like pretty much like 5 minutes away from New York if I wanted to go that way. So definitely exciting, but still nowhere near done contacting everybody. I'm waiting still for getting confirmation on book number 3. Still deciding if I want to do horror or roguelikes next. Because again, the roguelike genre certainly seems to be more and more topical with each passing week when it comes to indie games.
Yeah. I have to point out something that you might need to watch out for. You said you were preparing stuff for 2020.
Ooh.
You get it? For 2020.
Mm-hmm. Well, that would make for a very interesting cast, though. I'm sure everyone would love that.
For 2020.
Yeah. Everyone wants me to get either drunk or high for one of these streams. I don't know why. But
maybe just really buzzed.
There we go. Well, maybe I should just start sipping some alcohol in my soda here. No one will know, right?
Yeah, nobody would know.
But still catching up on the Steam sale. I haven't played Phantom Doctrine or Valkyria Chronicles 4 or any of those other games I bought. And of course, we're about probably 2 weeks away from the end of the year sale, so I'll have even more games to buy. And thanks to Shark here, my wish list went from 52 to 57, so I'm kind of losing track of that as well.
But I figured it was time for me to repay the favor because you're always doing the same thing to me.
Mm-hmm. So I'll get done my wish list probably by what, 2023, 24, somewhere along those lines?
No, by 2024, your wish list will probably be at about 300 or 400.
Of course it will. But I'm wrapping up playing Remnant, which I really like. But when I do my piece on it, like there's some very big issues with that game. But I think it's a good example of how much like a strong foundation I think can smooth over a lot of issues with the game. And Land with the Refrain, I'm like debating or not if I want to stop playing. Because it just is at that point of, hey, here's a boss, it kills you in one hit. Like, you missed it last time. After I finished the stream, I got to the area boss, And it literally did wipe out 4 of my 5 squads with one single attack.
Mm.
It's like, yeah. Like, that's just like XCOM right there. Speaking of which, we played XCOM, the original one, on stream last night. And that kind of is going to be inspiration for our coming piece. And hey, El Gordo.
I don't think the chat's working on the
Is it?
OBS.
It should be working. That's weird.
Huh?
Let's see. Oh, I see the problem.
It's you got the window size.
Yeah, let me move that up a little bit. There we go. Now everyone can see all our conversations right now.
Yep. As I have actually played a few of the games I recently purchased. Like I played some Shining Residence Refrain, and I was really looking forward to that. The first part of it's an RPG, an action RPG, and it's the beginning of it. They seem to try to blow you away, kind of thing, with kind of upfront kind of thing, but like it was kind of unrealistic to a point, and they really, it's still blowing me away. It took me out of it, kind of thing. But as I'm playing, like I'm slowly getting into it, kind of thing. I don't know how many hours I'm into it, maybe like 3, 2, something like that, and I'm liking the gameplay so far. It's just, that top, that front where they were, front loading was actually a download for me, because it didn't make a lot of sense. See here, what else have I been playing? Been playing some Turmoil, enjoying that. It's a little bit like there's definitely some issues I have with it. Most of it with usability kind of thing, and stuff like that, but like not with the gameplay itself. And but it's pretty fun. Been playing Ori and Blind Forest. Still haven't got very far in that, but enjoying it. I haven't got to the hard part yet. Not sure I'm going to be enjoying that part when it gets so nuts in there, but because I'm not a platforming expert or anything.
I don't play any platformers.
Yeah, you don't play any at all.
Yeah, Turmoil was an interesting one. I like that game, but I just never muster up enough energy to go through an entire campaign of it.
Yeah, I'm not. I think I'm like They have like 3 patches of land, and I've done 2 of them, and I think I just started on the 3rd. And I think there's more after that, but I'm not positive. That might be in the DLC. I know there's definitely more after that, but that might be DLC stuff. So maybe I'm close to going all the way through. Maybe not. I don't know.
Yeah. And it's only tough with some of these games, especially, again, we did our topic last week about just okay titles. And there's just so many games being released. And as an update for people watching this, we're going to be doing probably our end of the year wrap up either next week's show or the week after. Again, with the combination of Christmas and New Year's, it's going to be hard in terms of holiday time, but it's kind of like how the end of the year wraps up, isn't it?
Yep.
And I'm sure I'll have like 10 more games on my list when we get to the end of the year sale. But let me check our date here. Next week, starting from the 16th, that will be kind of the end of the year wrap up, where each night I'll be playing the games that are going to be on my top 10 list. Have you even given any thought to your top 10 list yet, Shark? Uh-oh, did we lose Shark?
No, I'm here.
Oh, there we go.
I mean, top 10 list. I mean, I've never done top 10 lists, so that is going to be a little bit tricky for me, especially since we got to figure out exactly how we're going to do in top 10. Like if it's top 10 that I've played this year or top 10 that's come out this year, because that would definitely thin the pack if it was had to come out this year, not just play it this year. And obviously, if I didn't play it this year, then obviously I can't vote for it.
We could just do the safe bet and just say it's Fortnite. Top 10 all games are Fortnite.
That seems safely safe. We need to be safely extreme, I think.
Mm-hmm. All right, but with that, let's get to some game news, and we'll quickly get to our topics. So, we were trying to find anything interesting that happened this week. There's some news about Valve and dealing with China that hasn't been fully confirmed yet. Next week is going to be the Game of the Year, the Video Game Awards show, which I'm sure we'll both be on, right?
Yeah, absolutely. On the news with Valve and China, it's the things have been confirmed. We just, we don't know if it's exactly what we think it is. We basically we see a bunch of puzzle pieces. They are there. They're proven, but we don't know if that necessarily adds up to China. But it sure is looking that way.
Yeah. And as we were saying, like earlier this year, when Tencent started to do a really big push in the game industry, a lot of people weren't sure how much that was going to really impact things, and we're kind of seeing like these little ripples here and there now.
Mm-hmm. It's very, very troubling.
And there are reports that it is the 25th anniversary. Yep, as of December 3rd, 1994. So this past week was the 25th anniversary of the PlayStation officially coming out, and that definitely seems like, again, like for like younger people watching, like Sony was like an institution, or they are an institution of the game industry. But I remember back in the day when they're just a small company making electronics and trying to make a few video games.
Mm-hmm. The thing about Sony is I used to really love them when they first came out with the PlayStation and whatnot, but I loved them to the PlayStation 1 era, loved them to the PlayStation 2 era. The PlayStation 3 era is where it's like I'm sure it wasn't an overnight change or anything, but from my viewpoint, it was an overnight change from what I've seen as a good company to what I've seen as a bad company, kind of thing. And I've seen them continue down that path with the PlayStation in the PlayStation 4 era, and I've stopped supporting them. But yeah, I mean, 20 years of anything is amazing.
Yeah. And of course, for the 25th anniversary, there's already talk about a PlayStation 5 as well. And this could be a topic maybe for a future episode, but like, do you think like we're hitting like the apex of needing additional platforms or additional consoles? Because I mean, this console generation between the PlayStation 4 and Xbox One lasted quite a while. I think it's been like 5 years, hasn't it?
Well, so did the PlayStation 1 and 2 lasted a lot longer than that. They were like, the PlayStation 2 was, I think, like 10 years, and I think PlayStation 1 was like 7 or 8. Yeah. So 5 years is relatively short.
Doesn't feel that way, does it, though?
No. But I tell you, I don't know, it feels like a lot of the games on PlayStation 3 and 4 are far more disposable than the games that came out on PlayStation 1 and 2.
Yeah. I mean, the PlayStation 2, I mean, we've been doing classic games every week, and I've been dipping into my PlayStation 2 library these last few weeks, and it was pretty much considered almost like the golden age for a lot of unique titles coming out.
And the golden age of RPGs, for that matter, too.
I mean, I love Shin Megami Tensei Nocturne, but of course, Final Fantasy, Kingdom Hearts, Dragon Quest. Maybe tonight we'll be doing Shadow Hearts too. Yeah, I mean, it definitely brought a lot of those games out there, and I mean, despite the PlayStation not really holding up graphically, those games are still very amazing. I still love Breath of Fire, Dragon Quarter, for instance.
Yeah, they had a lot of games, and it seems like, you know, back in the day, they seemed to go more for style than for just graphical power.
Mm-hmm.
Where now in newer consoles, in the PlayStation 3 and 4, they seem to have gotten away from doing stylized,
Mm-hmm.
appearances and going more for just raw graphical power.
Yeah.
And I think that's one of the things that makes them feel disposable to me because, you know, 6 months after they come out, it's like, oh, those graphics look horrible.
Yeah. And there's just not a lot of like standout AAA games these days, unfortunately. Again, everyone's really looking forward to something like Anthem, and we saw how quickly that game kind of came and went. And again, like this is why for me, like a lot of the games that are showing up on my list are from like the AA or independent space.
Well, I mean, there's tons of AAA games that are standing out. They're just standing out for the wrong reason,
Yeah.
like Fallout 76 or Anthem or uh, almost any of the Star Wars games, except for the newest one.
Mm-hmm.
Soccer games, anything that 2K, makes or EA
Yeah.
makes. A lot of those tend to stand out.
Mm-hmm. There's our new title for the podcast there. Algordo posted. The thumbnail could be like, well, myself and a shark like on a beach just staring out and yelling into the ocean there.
What am I supposed to say? Get off my water?
There you go. Yeah, and like it's definitely been like very interesting about the AAA space in terms of the big names that are either releasing games or not so. Like for instance, we really haven't heard anything brand new from Firaxis as of late. Again, like I'm sitting here eagerly awaiting XCOM 3 announcement or even a Civ 7. And there just hasn't been a lot there. Nintendo, of course, has been, doing bits and pieces. Of course, you got Luigi's Mansion 3, Smash this year, and it just seems like we're kind of hitting, like these peaks and valleys out of the AAA market.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is I used to really, really love me some AAA games. Like, you know, there was countless things I loved on the PlayStation 2, countless things I loved on the PlayStation 1,
Mm-hmm.
and the number of things I enjoyed on the PlayStation 3 was a drastic cut down from that. I mean, there was very few, and I was like, I was playing my PlayStation 3, and it's like, am I even going to be gaming here in a few years? Is there going to be an option for me?
Mm-hmm.
And luckily the light shined at the end of the tunnel, and I found the Wii U.
Mm-hmm.
Which was, despite what everybody says, an amazing console and amazing, some really amazing games on there. But nobody supported it, and Nintendo, a lot of that was Nintendo's fault with their marketing. They really, really flubbed their marketing.
Yep.
And it was an amazing console and everything. There was all kinds of stuff on it. It was great. And everybody's talking about how great the Switch is now. It's like, pretty much every good game that is on the Switch that you're praising was on the Wii U 4 or 5 years ago. It's like, I've already played that. That's not. I mean, it was great and amazing for me 3 or 4 years ago when I was playing on my Wii U, but now, no, that's not great and amazing anymore.
Yeah.
I mean, there's still a few standout titles that I would like to go back and replay, like Bayonetta 2, what was that one? What was the Zelda game? I forget.
Breath of the Wild.
Yeah, Breath of the Wild.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Breath of the Wild. A few others. I never really got into Smash, so that one really anything. Like the only real standout I see on the Switch over the Wii U is the Mario plus Rabbids and the Mario. What was that new Mario? Not Mario Galaxy. Mario.
Odyssey.
Yeah, Odyssey. Yeah, but that one really, the whole cat thing really turns me off. So like, it's a standout, but it's not like for me. But like, it's like these are just old games repackaged on the on the Switch. It's like, yeah, I mean, I was interested in buying a Switch until I found out that there was no new games for it, pretty much.
Yeah.
But luckily, by that time, I'd found the PC, and it's like, oh crap!
Now you have
There's
infinite
so many
indie
games.
games.
Yeah.
But I think talking about classics and what's making them hold up, that is a perfect segue into our first topic. And that is discussing what makes a game a classic one. So, as we've been reminiscing about the PlayStation 2 era, as well as older Nintendo games, there have been a lot. Obviously, there have been a lot of games released, but there's still only a handful that really stand that test of time. And it's kind of one of those things that a lot of people, especially with it being the end of the decade, like to wax philosophically about. But I don't see too many discussions about why these games hold up. Yes, everyone remembers Kingdom Hearts or Final Fantasy 12 or 13 or anything like that, but what makes a game kind of still stand out, something that you still want to play today, just as you played it 15, 20 years ago? And that's a lot harder to nail down. And obviously we all have our picks, and I'm going to throw here's like our little quiz for you, Shark, and for everybody watching this. Can you think of a game that still holds up today, but it has to be at least 20 years old, and it can't be from a major franchise? So no Metal Gear, Mega Man, Resident Evil, Mario, Sonic, etc. I made it a lot harder, that last point.
I mean, you pretty much said they can't be triple A's, but then that means, there's pretty much only triple A's. 10 years ago, because that was before the indie rush.
But there have been like double A games, like again, like the Shadow Hearts series, even stuff like Disgaea.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was about to say. Is this guy? This guy was an indie back then. They were indie back then, and back on PlayStation 2, they released Disgaea 1 and Makai Kingdom and Phantom Brave. And those, I think all three of those still stand up today. And they were definitely great back in their day.
I would even go back as far as saying some titles like, even some like the platformers that we played, such as Hook, Adventures of Batman and Robin. Like, there are some games that they don't look like they would hold up today, but I think from a general gameplay loop, they still work really well.
I think you caught yourself on your own rules, because you said no major things, and no major franchises or anything, and I'm pretty sure everybody knows how major Hook and Batman and Robin franchises are. What? So try again, Josh.
All right. Let's see. Would ActRaiser count as a major franchise?
That's borderline. It was major back then, and was that done by AAA? I'm pretty
that
sure
was done by Enix. Quintet.
Oh, if it's Enix, then definitely that's.
We even looked at something like Crow Team with Serious Sam. Like, what has been like Crow Team's like overall impact? Like, I've never really been sure. I know they've obviously released on multiple platforms, but I don't really think they're held in like the same breath as a lot of the other major studios.
Yeah, I don't know. I've never followed them or anything.
But like even something like the original XCOM, like when we played Open XCOM last night, which is essentially XCOM but works on modern computers. Like, XCOM's design holds up, but from a playability standpoint, it most likely doesn't hold up today.
Hmm. And there's plenty of games that hold old games that hold up that are from big franchises. Like
Mm-hmm.
I think Mario 3 holds up
Oh yeah.
still very well today,
Mm-hmm.
and Mario 64.
Of course. Yeah, but it's hard again to nail down like what do you think makes a game stand out from a design standpoint? Because again, everyone will bring up mega names like Final Fantasy, Eris's death. Spoiler alert for anyone who hasn't played that one. Metal Gear Solid for its crazy story. But mechanically speaking, what do you think makes these games stand the test of time?
Well, I mean, like Final Fantasy VII is one of my top games, if not my top game of all time, and I would honestly say it does not hold up to the test of time because of the graphical appearance of it. Just like I love that game and everything, and I play it. I try playing it, and it's like, oh god, that looks so horrible now. That does not hold up, and there's supposedly mods that I cannot get to work to give it a graphical appearance uplift on part of it anyway. But I haven't got it to work and everything. So like, I mean, I would say that a lot of those games, especially early PlayStation ones and that go for the 3D method anyway. Early
Mm-hmm.
PlayStation 1 and PlayStation 2 games that go for 3D, most of those do not hold up
No.
graphically. But gameplay wise, a lot of them do. It's just graphically they do not.
Yeah. And I think graphics and general UI are probably the two big killers for a lot of these games. For instance, like a lot of the classic style JRPGs have some very hard UIs to get into. Like we would try to
Mhm.
replay the original Final Fantasy, and that is not, if you don't have rose tinted glasses, that's not one you're going to enjoy. And again, even something like XCOM is a quintessential example. The game design is ahead of its time, even to this day, but that UI is just such a brick wall to the face to get somebody to play it.
Even if you do have rose tinted glasses, it's pretty hard to get over Final Fantasy 1 and 2
Yeah.
because there are so many issues with those games when they first came out. Like they were amazing games in their time
Mm-hmm.
and still good games by today, but there are so many issues that you got to get over on those.
Yeah. And especially when we talk about PC games, a lot of people, a lot of the older PC gamers, probably swear that late 80s to maybe like mid to late 90s was kind of like the golden age of a lot of experimental PC games. But in that same breath, every PC game had its own completely different UI and structure to it. So unless you actually played those games back in the day, like there's no reason a modern fan would want to go back and play them.
Yeah, I mean, like game development wise, we have
Mm-hmm.
we've gotten to a point to where UI design and stuff like this has become almost a science, and
Yep.
we've gotten at least some people have gotten to the point where they've really like got it clean and got it lined up, and of course, I was trying to bring RPG and tactical RPG, UI to
Mm-hmm.
and design to a new level, kind of thing. With our last game, I did not nail it or anything, but I
Mm-hmm.
think that I definitely put some good things out there.
Yep. And like that's the thing about how much game design is really standardized over the last decade, and we even argue maybe over the previous decade as well, the last 20 years, that you really do need to kind of do your homework these days to make a game. We've said that many times over, that the days where you could just kind of half-ass your design and still expect to get some sales are over, unless you want to count, the hate watch or hate play games, like the stuff like Jim Sterling covers.
Yeah, like asset flips mainly what he
Yeah.
covers.
And I think what you just said there regarding UI design and kind of just like the general gameplay has been like a major factor. But I think this kind of goes back to what you were saying in the previous section that like when we look at the PlayStation 1 to PlayStation 2 era, there were a lot of experimental or unique games during that era. I can think of games like Toomba, Maximo, Shin Megami Tensei Nocturne, and so on. As we moved forward and things became more standardized, it did kind of like, I think, hurt originality to some extent.
Yeah. I mean, like, even if you look back in the PlayStation 2 era and PlayStation 1 era RPGs, I mean, like they were, I mean, while they were still all RPGs, I mean, they were quite varied in their, the way they played and everything.
Yeah.
And now, I mean, they're less varied. I mean, there's an obvious reason for that because there's way less of them being made. But the ones that are being made are mostly just sequels to ones before, so they're not necessarily innovating on gameplay. They might add a new system or two kind of thing, but they're not trying to completely rebuild the thing. And yeah, I mean, Shadow Hearts played completely different than a Final Fantasy, and so did like Legend of Dragoon and any number of different RPGs back there just played so differently.
Do you remember the Wild? Was it Wild Hearts or Wild Arts? It was like a
I think there was both of those.
Maybe.
I know Wild Arts was a thing. I think Wild Hearts was too.
Yeah.
I never played those though.
Yeah, and that's always been kind of like this issue that whenever a big game comes out, obviously people will try and copy and iterate on it. But as we've said, it's become very risky to see like new games come from the AAA, even arguably the AA space these days.
And back to what I was saying on RPGs is what it seems like now is that it seems like most of them have almost completely dumped the turn-based, right? You may mainly only see action RPGs now or tactical RPGs, never just turn-based RPGs. Your standard RPGs. I mean, you rarely ever see those anymore. You either see the tactical kind, which would be turn-based, like Disgaea, Chromasia, there's a whole long list of those.
Stuff like that.
XCOM, although XCOM is a, different version of tactical RPG because it's a cover-based RPG. You got XCOM, you got Mario plus Rabbids, you got Phoenix Point.
Yeah.
Those are really the only, that is a very, kind of niche in the tactical RPGs.
Oh, yes. Like, especially stopping on XCOM for a second, like, there was a period where there were no XCOM games at all. Like, that genre was dead and buried. And it really wasn't until Firaxis took the name and made an Enemy Within, which then led to XCOM 2, that we saw this kind of resurgence of, I guess what we're now calling the XCOM likes.
XCOM is a cover-based tactical RPG, which is just a tactical RPG. But when you have to consider cover in the process of, your movement, you have objects that you can hide behind that will, obstruct, you from getting shot in some kind of way.
But I think what he's arguing is that there is more at the base building and persistent layers than a typical RPG, with the whole managing the campaign kind of thing.
I mean, it's I wouldn't say there's more. I would just say it was different because XCOM has far less stat management and a whole bunch of other things in there. And Disgaea went the completely other direction and just added.
It's all stats, very little gameplay. It's good. There's our topic. Disgaea versus XCOM. Which one is the better tactical RPG? We should post that on Twitter. I'm sure nobody would yell at us for that one. But here's a really interesting point. This is something I brought up on the stream last night. I want to throw out here. Like, speaking about XCOM again, XCOM UFO Defense is probably one of the most important, one of the most big name titles ever released. Like, if it's not in a top 100 best games of all time list, that list is kind of invalid in my opinion. But a few years ago, there was a game Xenonauts released, and this is one of those games that you either know or you have never heard of before. And Xenonauts was essentially pitched as, what if the fans remake XCOM for the quote-unquote modern era? And when we say modern era, the first game was released... come on, Steam, load up. In 2014. So this was right around the time of XCOM by Firaxis coming out. And that was kind of the point. It was supposed to be the counter to the more board game or board game layer of XCOM by Firaxis. And it came out and it's there kind of thing. Like, I played it for about 30 minutes after I bought it on sale, and I decided to return it because it didn't feel memorable to me. Even though it is essentially, what if somebody took XCOM and made it more modern? But in a way, it didn't seem to do anything more beyond that.
So what made it unmemorable to you? Right.
The graphics had a very basic look to them. It just felt like I was playing XCOM again, but with maybe slightly better graphics and a touch better of a UI.
So aesthetics is what really got you on it then.
Yeah, I think kind of the look and the feel to it were a really big point. And
I mean that seems to be right in line with our current market, to where if you want to sell a game realistically, it needs to be visually appealing.
Mm-hmm. And that's the thing. I see reviews of Xenonauts, and a lot of people there are people who say, I love this game because it's just like XCOM, and some will say, I hate this game because it's just like XCOM. And again, this is the point. Even though I have problems with XCOM by Firaxis, I still have to give them major points for presentation and just the layers that they put into that game. You cannot compare Firaxis XCOM to any other tactical strategy game. It's its own unique take on it.
You don't think you could compare that to Mario plus Rabbids?
No, definitely. From the underlying system standpoint, it's still better. Whether we talk about the meld system, Exalt, or even going to XCOM 2 with the Nemesis idea of the different Chosen. There's a lot there that they've added to that design to make it stand out. Now, even with that said, though, Mario Rabbids is also its own unique take, being more, reactive compared to the other tactical strategy games.
Well, I think Mario plus Rabbids is meant to be more, sort of the gateway drug to bring people into the genre, because the tactical RPGs, especially cover-based tactical RPGs, isn't a big genre kind of thing. I think pretty much Phoenix put XCOM to XCOM and Mario plus Rabbids is pretty much it for the cover-based tactical RPGs. Now, regular tactical RPGs is also a small one, but it's not as small kind of thing. But at the same time, it's smaller because because when you talk about non-cover based tactical RPGs, you got all the Disgaea games, you got Final Fantasy Tactics, and there's a bunch of others, but those are really the only big names. But you have tons of other smaller ones out there. But those are the only big names, where in the cover-based tactical RPGs, there's only 3 of them as far as I know, and they're all 3 big names.
Yeah. And it is that's another thing, what we've been talking about in terms of classic games and holding up. A lot of the classics that are on anybody's list have gone on to define their respective genres. Even we talk about stuff like Spelunky, Binding of Isaac, going as far back as stuff like Super Metroid, Castlevania, and the like these kinds of titles became like defining moments for their respective genres that everybody else has tried to, chase after.
Yeah, I think it might even be the defining moments that is causing
Mm-hmm.
the lack of difference now, because they have defined it, and now
It's all just
it's almost like everybody's got to stay, get in line or get out, kind of thing, almost.
Yeah. And again, like you can really only play a game one, for the first time once. I mean, like for me, like Demon Souls, like that is one of my all-time. That's going to be a memorable game for me for way into the many decades because of just how much it influenced games going forward. But in that same breath, now every game is going to be compared to Demon Souls, or by extension, Dark Souls, in terms of that design.
Yeah. I know back in the day, I used to really love Assassin's Creed 1 and
Mm-hmm.
2, and the 2 trilogy, rather.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, 3 I could have definitely lived without. That was, no. 4 was really good, but it wasn't really an Assassin's Creed game. It was more of a Pirates game, an Assassin's Creed game. And then after that, it was like they dumped the story. They which like the story is what kept me coming back. I mean, like the gameplay was evolving bit by bit.
Yeah.
Which was enough to keep me interested to a point, but it wasn't just enough to sell me on. It was, the story, allowed me to keep on going, and the new mechanics allowed me to get a better experience while I was experiencing that story, basically. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And
And
like
then they dropped this story, and it was just like, nope, I'm done.
And again, like that's one of the issues with a lot of these long-running franchises, that it becomes harder and harder to sustain that momentum or that growth. So you either, get into a routine or a rut, or you try to do something completely experimental and kind of YOLO it, and then that can also fail. Like we saw with Anthem. Again, like Anthem was supposed to be BioWare's next magnum opus. You know, major video game company making, action-based RPG. And it turned out BioWare is not good at making action-based RPGs.
Yeah.
And it apparently turns out that Bethesda's not good at making MMO-style Fallout games.
Or any game that's not buggy.
Mm-hmm. And this is, I think, let me check our time, because I think we'll move on to weird games in a few minutes, but here's, I think, one big question I want to ask everyone, including you too, Shark. I already talked about classic games of 15, 20 years ago. Again, we could certainly sit here and reminisce for the next hour or two. But do you think there are any games this generation that will stand the test of time for like 20, 30 years in the future?
Oh, that's a hard one.
Mm-hmm.
It's mm, by this generation, you mean over the last, I don't know, 10 years or so?
Yeah. We'll go, let's say, from PlayStation, we'll include PlayStation 4, Xbox One, Switch, and Wii U, and, any PC games release. And it is tough. Like, oh, good. Then they'll bring back Fortnite as Fortnite Classic, just like they did Classic WoW.
I mean, there's a few, at least I think. I mean, FTL, I think would fit into that. Stardew Valley, everybody likes quoting Stardew Valley. Minecraft.
What do you think about Undertale? Do you think that will stand the test of time?
Well, I mean, not for me, but
Well,
for other people, certainly.
There's your bit of clickbait. Shark hates Undertale. Let everyone. Somebody post that on Twitter.
Uh,
Shark hates Sans. Film at 11. There's our clickbait title.
we just need a picture of Sans right where your picture is.
Mm-hmm.
Where your camera is. Replace that with Sans, and then remove the help me name this and put a big versus logo
There
there,
we go.
and we're good right there, right?
Yeah. Like, for myself, I do think XCOM by 4X is going to stand mainly as kind of being like the game that revived the genre for the market. I would say Dark Souls, or pick one of the Dark Souls games.
This guy will stand the test of time, I think.
Yeah. And like, this is like the thing. Like, this could be another topic, but like, as I'm thinking about my top 10 list of games, like, I've played and enjoyed a lot of games this year, but it's hard for me to nail down, what would be my 10 favorite. There are games I liked, but what games do I like more than that? And like we said, like, it's so hard to come up with the very best examples because so many games are being released now.
Yeah. Slay the Spire might stand the test of time, and so would Ori and the Blind Forest.
Mm-hmm.
Spin Tires might. Don't know. I mean, that didn't. I mean, I think it'll stand the test of time, but I don't. It didn't have the largest following to begin with, so that might be one of the kind of stands the test of time, but not for a whole lot of people, kind of thing. I mean, Path of Exile will probably stand the test of time to a point. 7 Days to Die might stand the test of time. But if you look at most of those games, they almost every one of them either started a new genre or something like that, or they did a new twist on a genre, or they brought the genre back from the dead, like Stardew Valley, or they were just so amazing on their aesthetics, like Ori. And they all seem to be either leading their genre, reviving it, or just so aesthetically pleasing.
Yeah. And again, like, I think this is the final point. Like, because of how hard it is for these games to stand out, a lot of the games that are going to try and do that, you really pretty much have to go all in on them. And even in some cases, some of these games that have stood out may have ended up ending the studio in the process if it didn't sell well.
Yeah.
And like, I think. Oh yeah, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Oh no, go if you. Oh, my voice is dying.
To what El Gordo said, like, no, like some of these games are not my favorite. Like, I mean, like I like Slay the Spire, but it's definitely not my favorite or anything. I like Ori and the Blind Forest, but it's not exactly my favorite either. At least not of yet. I haven't played very far into it. Now, I do absolutely love FTL, but pretty much everybody does. XCOM I have issues with, but like a lot of issues with, but I don't see that one standing the test of time. Well, I'm not standing the test of time, rather, because it pretty much created the cover-based tactical RPG, as a genre kind of thing. This guy I actually really love, and they really defined tactical RPGs, even though
but
the criteria is just whatever will stand the test of time.
But that's not. But there's no real way to qualify that or even quantify it, because again, everybody is different, and I think that again makes it such a tough topic. Because if we think about it, the games that stand the test of time kind of lock it from everybody else. Because again, there can only be one Super Mario Brothers. There can only be one XCOM. There can only be one Star Control 2.
I have to disagree. There's at least 10 or 15 Mario Brothers.
Are we sure?
Yeah. There's at least 10 or 15 of them.
I think, like, from a design standpoint, it pretty much has to do something that sets the standard for that genre. Again,
or redefines the genre.
Yeah.
Like how, XCOM redefined tactical RPGs by doing cover based.
Yeah. Or Diablo 2 gave us the template for ARPGs. Dark Souls or even Demon Souls gave us the design of, that the Souls-like. Like, if I look at my book, 20 Essential Games to Study there, like, one of the reasons I picked those 20 games, because I do feel they stand the test of time. That even though there have been other takes on that genre, other examples of that design, those games were kind of the first to bring that to light.
Yeah.
Like, there's a reason.
Like Final Fantasy Tactics is really where I think that might have been the first tactical RPG. It might not have been. It was one of the first, if it wasn't the first. But, and that definitely had some defining characteristics. But really, if you look at it in the big picture, it was really Disgaea that really defined a lot of it. They made it into a whole completely different thing, kind of thing.
And to Algordo's point, again, like, that's that tricky point. Like, what makes, here's an example. What makes Bloodborne stand out, or does it stand out from Dark Souls? Like, we can argue that Bloodborne, from a mechanics standpoint, came out later than the first Dark Souls, so it would obviously be a better game from that point of view. But again, like, whenever we look at these games that people remember the most, it's always the first. And I think like, going back to Algorit's point about personal taste, I think in a way that kind of is, the big point here, because we all remember the first time we played these kinds of designs. Even going back to Minecraft. Minecraft, of course, as the story goes, copied other, open survival style games. But that was the first game that, for a lot of people, experienced that kind of design.
Well, it's not just new; it's redefining, because, Stardew Valley kind of redefined the Harvest Moon kind of thing. They didn't create a new genre; they just really redefined it.
I think going to Ogoro's point there, extrapolating from that, why should people care about Stardew Valley and not care more about Harvest Moon then? There's a tough question.
And a lot of indie developers, that don't know what they're doing, like to refer to Stardew Valley as their holy grail, and that, he did it, so why can't we?
Yeah. Same thing for FTL.
Yeah.
It's that I think these games occupy a very narrow criteria of, it is redefining in the point that it's new compared to the other examples that are out there, but still holds to that kind of design.
We're not talking about what's a classic. We're talking about what... Help me on that one, Josh.
We've been kind of switching in between what makes a game a classic and what makes a game stand out. Like, I think let's begin to wrap up this segment. I think we're kind of going around circles, but in my opinion, a game that stands as a classic is something that it basically becomes the defining moment for that genre. It's the game that kind of the other titles, even though there may have been other examples of that genre before, it's the game that becomes the de facto example. So
That's the one that popularized it.
yeah, so something like Doom. Obviously, Wolfenstein 3D came out before Doom did. I think there were a few other FPSs, but Doom is the one that kind of hit every point correct. It's the one that became the defining moment for that genre.
Yeah, and I think it's a lot harder nowadays to stand out as a classic rather than back in the day. And I think there's two reasons behind that. Number one, of how many games are physically out there, and that is because there's so many to stand out. And when you can't, like, there's so many out there, there's less difference in between the games, right?
I was just about to
And
say
then,
that.
and then because of that less difference, it makes them stand out less. And then the other aspect is because there's so many out there, there is less time for you to get involved with each one. Yeah, they made a fetch quest simulator, my understanding, Oscar.
It's going to be the best damn fetch quest simulator, though, right?
Wait a minute. No, they didn't invent a new genre. That's just a single-player MMO.
But I think to your point of what you just said there about so many games kind of copying or emulating other titles, I think that's another really big point. Because like these days, like I've said this many times, like whenever I play a new game, my mind just immediately references other titles there. It uses the farming system from Harvest Moon. It uses the loot system from Diablo. And like these are great games, but it's that same thing of, are there any brand new games that just 100% knock me out of my chair, like, oh my god, I've never seen this before in this way, oh my goodness, this is an amazing game like that. And I think it goes back to the earlier point that I said, like, I can think of great games that came out in 2019. It's hard for me to come up with a list of, defining moments of games in 2019.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's more of a Josh problem than because you play so many games and you know design and whatnot, and
that is certainly true.
I do too, but I don't tend to dissect too much of these games. Like I dissect enough to get to get good at the game. You know what I mean? And then I leave it at that. I don't go deep into it unless I need to research it for a game I'm making. But like, you go into deep on all of them. So
yeah.
I think that's more of a Josh problem than everybody else problem. But I think that Josh problem does resonate out to everybody else in a lesser manner kind of thing.
All right. Let's see. I think with that, let's move on to our weird game segment, because this one kind of went longer than I expected it to.
Me too.
All right, let me
I was expecting this to be like 10, 15 minutes, and then we were going to be on to the next topic.
Isn't that how it always turns out?
Pretty much.
All right, let's see. All right, let's see what weirdness is coming out this week. Earthshine? The hell is this? Ooh, about 1 to 2 hours of gameplay. I do like how developers are now including female character as a feature.
I mean, it is a feature, right?
Ooh, love and destiny. There we go.
I think what they mean is female protagonists, not female characters. Because I could see like female protagonists maybe being some kind of selling point, but having a female character in your game, I don't see that as being a selling point. I barely see the female protagonist as a selling point, but it could be for some people.
I got rejected from playing Ash in there. Oh.
Uh-uh.
True Love 95. I'm afraid to click on that one. Abandoned 2. So we're in the visual novel point here. There's Shovel Knight. Boom.
Probably El Gordo.
Uh-oh. It features advanced VR mechanics.
Ooh, not just standard VR mechanics, but advanced ones.
What are they? Extreme.
Are they safely extreme?
Mm-hmm.
Would be the more important one.
Wait, they said that already up there. They say it was so advanced I had to repeat it.
It was advanced.
Mm-hmm. Escape the Ninja Room. More Shovel Knight. Murder on the Island. Again, I'm kind of afraid to click on that. Country Road VR.
Country Road, take me home. To the place where we get demonetized.
Yep. Cook Dungeon? It's completely real random, okay?
Completely real random. So it's random. So that means it's unfair, right? It's fair in how unfair it'll be.
What the hell is that last paragraph saying? Although this is a small leisure game, but do not have good expectations for this game?
All right, Josh. Do not have good expectations for this game.
Alright.
So we have very bad expectations for this game. You've heard it here in this chat. Right here.
What the
bad expectations for it.
Puzzles give you some time. I guess it's a platformer?
Maybe.
But then it turns into an action game. I don't know. It's hard to tell on this one. Why is it free to play? Why is it an RPG? I am deeply confused here.
Those sound like very big red flags right there.
Captain Claw? Manguin. Penguin Apocalypse. Wait, Jamestown? Is it by the same developer? Wait, what is this?
Fantasy Realm TD. That's a name that stands out as very safely safe.
Mm-hmm.
Stands out by not standing out at all.
Oh, I just realized we could play a Jamestown as a co-op game. A shmup co-op. That shouldn't completely destroy things.
Yeah, lags are going to completely kill you if you get it.
Mm-hmm.
I know in a lot of games when I get the lag, I just start pressing random buttons so I'm not just standing still. And sometimes I do better when I can't see because of lag. And other times I just, and often, and other times I get, it'll the lag will stop and it'll stop just at the perfect time for me to see that punch coming right to my face and knock me across the room and kill me. It's like, well, yeah, thanks for that.
A Tofu Tale. Battle Santa Edition. Ooh, Cat Lady the card game. Girl versus Crowd. Nothing seems to be standing out this week, at least in the good way. Kyle is Santa.
Well, you don't want to play the Cat Lady game?
Nah, I'm good on that one. Vladimir Putin style. Furry Shakespeare. I'm,
Well, you got your West Sweetie there.
mm,
Sounds like something. Looks like something that Drakon would be interested in.
mm-hmm.
Furry Shakespeare. What?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't remember that at all playing classic Doom. Close your eyes. Split or steal? Mm. Keep getting emails about dead end job. Mm-hmm. What the? Log into shooter range in server OOVR.
That sounds weird.
Jenga.
Bomber Fox. What is that?
Uh, let's see. Ooh. Bomber Man with more game modes and very challenging levels. Not liking that neon though. Looks like that could be a little bit hard on the eyes.
Yeah, there's a bit much of it.
What the heck is Bottler 3? What?
Plus, it really doesn't make any sense for a Fox game.
Game all about recycling.
Yeah, it kind of is a cyberpunk furry Bomberman.
Kill the Emoji, the remake. Bloody train.
We talked before about cyberpunk coming to the forefront.
What the hell is this? Not to die. There's a lot of death in this game. What the hell is this?
It might be the same artist, Oscar. I don't know. El Gordo, rather.
TMS drink? Tomorrow don't come. Mm-mm.
Are they telling us to not come tomorrow, or are they saying that the sun is going to stop revolving around the Earth?
I don't know.
Or
Pizza time explosion. I'm gonna go for some pizza.
Or rather that I'm mixing on my science, rather that the Earth is going to stop revolving.
Looks like it's gonna be a dead week at this point. Elf Manor, Good Time Garden.
We were talking about things standing out, and we're not getting anything to stand out.
Okay, Boomer, the video game. I wonder how long it took them to make that one.
Probably about a week. Because it's been about a week since that's taken off.
What is Pivot? What?
Does gameplay that makes you pivot? Maybe not.
Wait.
Man, that art.
Oh, God. That's a very good tutorial right here.
Oh, yeah. That's just put all the text right in front of the player to, and in a way that is just thrown all over the place. That sounds like amazing tutorial.
Mm-hmm.
Or looks like an amazing tutorial.
Oh, good. I get to enjoy cult references and eclectic in-jokes.
Oh, man. That's a heck of a feature.
Again, I always like new min-max optimization games, but you gotta do something about your presentation in order to keep people interested. Like when we do, I have to do that live presentation about UI design. Like this right here is a no-no. You don't want icons just kind of floating in the ether there. Either move them directly into the frame. Why isn't this over here? Because it doesn't look like there's any space over here. This is taking up that whole area.
I think I did one of those no-dos in this game.
All right. But I think with that, let's move on to our final topic, because I think this one will hopefully, quote unquote, be a short one.
Are
So,
we hoping it's going to be short?
or it'll be the next 2 hours. We'll see. But this is something about kind of how much should post-release support or immediate support matter to a game. And this is something that, again, we've talked about in the past regarding like long term. We're talking like games as a service, live service kind of design. But we've also seen cases of developers releasing a game and then immediately, if not sooner, doing patches and support along those lines. And Phoenix Point is one of those examples. Like it was released a few days ago, and they're already talking about lack of features and things that are planned going forward, and people are running into bugs as of right now as well. And this is one of those things that on one hand, it's good that we see developers releasing emergency patches or fixing a game, but it's also bad that it had to get to that point to begin with.
Yeah, I think day one patches and stuff like that, should be tried to have been avoided. Basically, I mean, you should do your best
Mm-hmm.
to get proper testing done. I mean, getting testers is very hard. It's not as hard for like a game like that is very well known, like Phoenix Point and
Mm-hmm.
XCOM, as it would be for unknown indie, kind of thing. So like it's more excusable for an unknown indie, but like you know, I just have to wonder, did they know that this was going to be an issue before they even released, and they were already working on it, but they didn't get it in time for day,
Mm-hmm.
to update before the. I mean, they're. I don't even know Epic's policy. I mean, do they have? Because I know some places
Mm-hmm.
will make you wait like a week after you made a patch to actually get it in there. I know Android and Apple have. Well, I don't know if Android. I know Apple has something like that you have to go through approval process on every patch. I know that
Mm-hmm.
Switch and
Yeah.
all Nintendo, all consoles have like that kind of thing. I know Steam doesn't. I don't remember about Android, but I don't think Android had to. But I don't know if Epic has that kind of release period.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that was a first week back on Steam though, wasn't it?
For which game?
For Phoenix Point.
That didn't come out on Steam. That just came out on Epic.
Oh, so it's on Epic.
Yeah.
I thought they just released on Steam, or not yet.
No, that's. I think they're still their year of exclusivity.
Oh, I thought they released on Epic a year ago.
No, Phoenix Point just came
No.
out. Hades is coming out on Steam.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm getting
And
my things mixed up.
like one example that I remember of like just like a weird launch was the original Magica. Like when that game was released, like for the first week, I think first week to 14 days, they had daily patches for that game. Like because it
Ooh.
was so buggy and broken that nobody could play it.
Yeah, I mean, daily patches is just asking for it to get more
Mm-hmm.
buggy and broken.
Yeah.
Because kind of the general rule with programming is that you want to fix all the bugs at once and then issue a patch for it, because
Mm-hmm.
if you don't, then one patch is potentially going to break another one.
Yep.
Because I mean, a patch is different from an update, because a patch is just it's like it's like patches in your jeans back in when that was a thing, kind of thing. People would
Mm-hmm.
put a patch in a pair of jeans, and you would have like a pair of blue jeans with a polka dotted patch in the knee or wherever, and that was what a patch was, and that's what patches are in game development. It's just a little piece of code kind of thrown in there just to fix things, and that's about it, kind of thing. It's not meant to be a long term thing. It's just supposed to be a temporary thing, and those temporary things can break other things. So when you doing patches like all the time, that's bad. I mean, like an update would be they would still be fixing the thing that would when they go to do an update, they would update and fully fix the issue rather than just patching it and whatnot.
And this is why, like, for Firaxis, like, they've been criticized for taking a long time to do their patches, but they typically spend a lot of time getting as many bug fixes and making sure the version is as stable as possible before pushing out their next big patch.
Yeah, I mean, I think that you can definitely take too long, especially on bug fixes and whatnot. You should not be trying to add content while you're doing a bug fix.
No.
Not unless you can do it at the same time, without slowing down the bug fix. You should be, fixing bugs and then, issuing more content after the fact. And, fixing bugs generally, not always, but generally doesn't take all that long. I mean, you could probably, fix 10, 15 bugs in a week kind of thing, and then ship that out and, see what anybody does about it. I mean, sometimes, it takes 2 weeks, sometimes could take 4 or whatever. But in the case that it would take a really long time, what you would do is you would focus on the game breaking stuff and get those out as soon as possible.
Yeah. And, like, this has been, like, one of the weird issues that, again, we've seen with this growth of live service. And, as you said earlier, day one patches. And, like, it's one of those I think it's one of those interesting, consumer versus a developer debates. That developers see day one patches and stuff like that as a good thing. They continue to work on a game after it went gold and they have new content. Consumers see it as, I buy your game, and then you decide to do more work on top of it, and now there's even more to deal with.
Mm-hmm.
And also,
I think post-release patches are good to a certain point, and by a certain point, I mean you don't want to overwhelm players with it. Mm-hmm. You don't want to break the game. You don't want to cost yourself too much money in updating the game, scope and everything. You don't want to upset the balance of things. You don't want to do a lot of things kind of in that. You want to refine what's there, listen to feedback, get fixed bugs, address anything that you need to address by feedback, and maybe add some content, at some point, but not in the early kind of
like you shouldn't. Yeah, it shouldn't be at week 2 of your game. Here's 3 new systems we're going to add in with a patch.
Yeah, that should not be happening in week 3.
Yeah, and like
maybe in I wouldn't even say in month 3 you should be adding 3 systems. Maybe. The only way I could really see like adding 3 new systems on month 3 is if it was something specific, like we're adding a Halloween event that's taking place over all Halloween, and in order to get this thing in, this specific thing needs 3 new systems.
Yeah. And I won't get to Olgo's point because he actually got something I was trying to reach. He got to it first. Like, there's an argument that I see from a lot of people in the industry saying, like, day one patches are great because they let developers fix issues and stuff that was going to make it into the full game. But I would argue that you shouldn't be declaring your game, again, as Olgo said, going gold as a lie if that version of the game still needed 3 weeks or months of patches that become the day one patch. And a really big example of this is something like No Man's Sky. If you remember, again, I think everyone at this point, going back to our previous hub about memorable games, I'm sure No Man's Sky is going to be memorable, but probably for the wrong reasons.
Exactly.
That the day one version of the game was horrible. A lot of people hated. There were so many issues with it, and basically that day one patch kind of, again, it didn't completely save the game, but it was a night and day difference. And while people argue that's great, they work on the game, they release a patch and made everything better, the counterpoint is, if this patch was so vital to making sure your game worked, why wasn't that on the disc when it was released?
Yeah. I mean, like, I feel like patches for games that are on disc is a pretty bad thing, period. Like if you're going to do a physical release, you want to be sure that that game is really good without needing to patch. Now, it's more forgivable on digital only games because I mean, you're not, all your content's going to be in one place. It's going to be all right there in digital, so a digital patch is fine. I mean, the only way I would find, like, really a physical game having a patch is if it was a physical patch, because if one thing goes down, if something happens to your disc or something happens to your download service, you lose that game. Where in the case of like an all digital game or like a physical game with physical patches, the download stuff can go down and you're fine because you've got the disc. Or in the case of all digital one, you could there's no disc to lose, so you're fine on that segment. So you only have to worry about one way to lose your game rather than two ways to lose your game.
Yeah. And not to mention, of course, DRM, as Alberto was saying. Like, there are games that you can't play anymore because the authentication servers have been taken down. But that's its own topic there. And one of the things about, and this is, I think, one of the issues when we talk about kind of early release or immediate patches or announcements, like getting back to Phoenix Point, like, this is that very weird situation. Again, I'm going to ask everybody their thoughts on this. That even before the game was released, they already had a year of DLC planned out for it. And this is one of those cases where, optimist versus pessimist. The optimist thinks, hey, that's great. They planned out, 12 months of support for my favorite game. The pessimist thinks, you already planned this stuff out. Why isn't this already in the base game? Like, why is this being, pushed out so late after the game's release?
Yeah, I think it's. I mean, like, you could have that viewpoint from the beginning, but like after the game comes out, I mean, I think that kind of viewpoint goes away because you can. Well, you and I can see it. I'm sure many other people can see it. Did they just throw this out there way too early, or are they legitimately just making the game better? You know what I mean? I mean, we've seen games that that were thrown out there too early, and they definitely lacked. And then like No Man's Sky, and then after it was out there for long enough, then it was good, or decent kind of thing. And then we've seen other games that were put out there, and they were solid experiences from the day one, and then they just got more and more kind of thing. So I mean, yeah, it's a viewpoint at first until you play it and experience it and find out which way it is, and then sadly, most of the way it is they throw it out there too early. And that's a bad thing, a very bad thing in my opinion.
Yeah, and like to Street Fighter V and Elgoro's point there, that's another case where they released the game. They literally said the story mode's not done yet. We're going to release it later. And like that is just like a slap in the face, I feel.
And then apparently it was even more of a slap in the face because it was sold as a DLC,
Mm-hmm.
not even part of the game.
Yeah.
It's taking out parts of the game to sell it back to you later.
And there is, I think, as you said, there is a difference between supporting a game with new stuff and having to fix the stuff that wasn't working to begin with.
Yeah. I mean, there's a big difference from, having a solid game
Mm-hmm.
that gets better versus, something thrown out there very incomplete
Mm-hmm. That
that
then
is
gets
then
fixed.
later patched to become more complete.
Yeah.
I mean,
And I think a good example of that would be something like Forager, which I really enjoyed this year. And one of the
mhm,
things I really liked about it is that from day one, it was a complete idea. The whole gameplay loop was figured out. It knew what it wanted to be right then and there. And then they release expansions and updates that add on to that. And
mhm,
again, like what we say here, it sounds very simple, but we're still seeing developers. Oh, here's the perfect counterexample. I just thought of it. That Lazy Bear Games. Punch Club, Swag and Sorcery, Graveyard Keeper, those titles. Like,
mhm.
those games, they're released, and within like a week or two, they are putting out balance patches for that game because people are finding all the issues they left in.
Yep. I think it just boils down to when it's released, is it a complete good experience kind of thing?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, any game can be better.
Oh, yeah.
Any game can be better. Like there's certainly limits to scope and monetary value and just the lack of ideas on how to go forward with it. But I mean, there's always ways to make games better. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, we kind of ran into that kind of thing with our last game of running out of ideas how to make it better. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
we had a group of testers, a small group, as best we could manage, and we were asking them to nitpick about anything. Tell us anything that is bothering you in the slightest way. This little hair brushed me in a wrong way, kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Like I did not like this hair right here. Get rid of it. Anything, and nobody could come up with any ways to make the game better. I mean, there is obviously ways to make the game better.
Mm-hmm.
We're planning a remake, and there's a long list of
Yeah.
things to make it better. But at that time, there was nothing that we could think to make it better.
Yeah. And like we've said, like there is no such thing as the number one perfect game. Again, developers will always think of something more they could have added. I ask this of a lot of developers, like when I do like interviews with them. Was there anything left on the cutting room floor? And a lot of them will usually respond with no. But even when you say no like that, there's always that idea of adding in more. Like we've said on previous topics, if my game is 20 levels long, I add 20 more levels, sure that'll make it, twice as good. There's always that tendency that just keep adding more and more to a title. But there has to be exactly with Star Citizen. Like I think to kind of have like a major point for this section, there has to be a foundation. There has to be essentially, what does 1.0 mean to your game? And like we said earlier, like the idea of going gold, I think that's kind of fallen out of the wayside these days. But you still need an idea of what does version 1.0 look like for my game? And then it has to get better from there. Obviously, your game shouldn't get worse as you put more patches out. And
There's certainly some that do.
exactly, like I was just about to say, like, with games as a service, we've seen some games get objectively worse. because they add in features nobody wants, or they change things around. And
Yeah, I mean, I had a developer friend of mine that I play his game, and well, it's not he's not top dog or anything. He's one of the low rung people,
mhm,
but like I absolutely love this game. I don't know if I should mention it or not, but it was one of my favorite games and one of the games I was most looking forward to. And I played it and put several hundred hours into it, and I absolutely fell in love with it.
mhm,
And I mean, they've added a bunch of updates to it and everything, and you know, none of it, none of it really changed how the game played or made it more interesting. It was just more items kind of thing.
mhm,
And when we went to replay it and make a server with it, and not only did those things not really add anything. I
mhm.
mean, like it added very minor things. Lots of very minor things that really didn't really change my opinion of the game.
Yeah.
But they had redone like UI stuff,
Mhm.
redone recipes, redone the things that the core gameplay, how it works, and
Mhm.
ooh, that did not work. It did not
Yep.
feel good. It felt like they had just seriously downgraded the game in
Yeah.
so
And
many ways.
this goes back to a conversation I had with Chris Park from Arkin. That when he talked about how they changed how his studio developed his games, one of the major points was we're going to develop our core gameplay loop. That is version 1.0 of our game, and that will not be changed or affected at all. Once that is settled, that is the law essentially for that game. All the future content will kind of be branches off of that core gameplay loop. So that if it works, great. It takes something better, it takes something good and makes it better. If it doesn't work, we can just, leave that, chop that limb off essentially and say, you don't like it, you don't have to deal with it. Here's our core gameplay. It has not been touched. And like we said, you have to be really careful when you're changing a core gameplay around, whether it is during pre-release or post-release.
Yeah, or early access.
Mm-hmm. It was.
And I mean, they didn't physically change the core gameplay loop. They just changed aspects on how things functioned
Mm-hmm.
in the core gameplay loop.
Yeah.
Like instead of having to click here and do this, now you had to go into a menu to click here, and then you had to
Mm-hmm.
go into a menu for that and click here to now do this.
Changing the moment-to-moment gameplay is always very risky like
And
that. And this is why a lot of the better, this is why, for a lot of the games that we've played, or the ones I personally have enjoyed, you know, they're great from the first few minutes of playing it. Like that initial feedback loop works. And it takes so much to get a game to that point that once you've done that, you never want to touch that again, in fear of breaking, what you just fixed.
yeah, and well, this is kind of a topic for another day. I think
Yeah.
I'll just save it.
Yeah. I think I am just about out of things, so I guess do you have anything to wrap up this section on?
Well, I mean, there's, I think it's more of a recap kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Like there's nothing wrong with updating your game. You should absolutely update your game, but be careful about it. And when I say you should absolutely update your game, I don't mean you should continuously always, feed into it like it was a live service.
Yeah.
I mean, you should always update it if it needs an update.
Mm-hmm.
Don't add anything that's not needed. If you need to bug fix it, bug fix it. If there is one like new killer feature that you think that it really needs, add it in, kind
Yeah.
of thing. But like you shouldn't be trying to support your game. Well, I meant support it with new content.
Mm-hmm.
You shouldn't be trying to support your game with new content forever. you should definitely be supporting it for bugs and fixing anything that's wrong with it. But you shouldn't be focused on adding stuff to it
Mm-hmm.
unless it's a live service kind of thing.
Yeah. Or if you promise that to people, saying that after release we will have 2 free content patches. Okay, you
Yeah,
made that promise, do it. But then don't
yeah,
then say, oh, you know what? Let's do 3 more years of free content patches.
yeah. That seems like suicide for your studio.
Yeah. And I think to add on to what Shark was saying, that you should obviously be supporting your game. Again, bug fixes, especially once they've been found out, they are critical. Yes, fix them. You don't want to be leaving critical bugs into a game. There is a title that I picked up. This is a city builder. Let me see. Can I look it up really fast? Here it is. Lethis. Lethis. Path of Progress. This was a city builder that came out that, unfortunately, it's not playable on like certain computers. It doesn't work on my computer. Like it just crashes immediately, and the developer couldn't fix it. They ran out of budget or they moved on to another game. And unfortunately, you can't do that. Like I know this is like one of those points again that's kind of developer versus consumer. But if there is a mission critical or game critical bug in your game that's preventing people from playing it, you have to fix it. Even if it does hurt your profit, even if people aren't supporting your game anymore, you need to let that goodwill out. Or people are going to remember that for your next game.
Yeah. Well, the only real exception to that is if you're going out of
Yeah,
business.
of course.
Right.
Like if the company is literally gone, then you get a pass on that. But
Well,
don't
I wouldn't
move.
say you get a pass on it. It's just that you
Yeah,
don't need to keep the goodwill because you ain't
you're
going to exist.
yeah. But if you're going to be making another game, then yeah, you need to do that.
Hmm.
And again, like you can release stuff post launch, but you always need to understand what does version 1.0 of my game mean. And I think some developers do kind of forget that lesson. That one day they'll be like, "Oh, let's make our game 1.0." But if there's still bugs or there's still issues missing or not working, you can't really do that. Um, the example I was here in my mind was Stonehearth. That they turned the game 1.0 because they just finished caring about the game. They didn't want to work on it anymore. And while that game had a lot of features to it, again, people can track the things that were promised that never made it
Yeah, it's not good to promise things and not deliver on it. It's very very bad.
in. But I think with that, let's wrap things up. And yeah, that Rune 2 thing is very weird. The game was released and the developers disappeared. And now I think the publisher is suing the developers for disappearing. That is just.
Yeah, I think that you need to. I think developers need to be careful what they promise. First of all,
Hmm.
because if you promise anything to the public's going to expect it.
Hmm.
So if you don't promise something, you don't know that besides any freak accidents,
Hmm.
you know, will not be able to happen. I mean, freak accidents happen.
Hmm.
People can understand that it does not look good on your company,
Yeah.
but don't promise anything you hope you can do or you think you can do. Like
Promise when you
know that you can
know you
do
can
it.
do it.
Yeah, absolutely. You need to know that you can do it. Outside of a freak accident.
Yeah.
Like somebody gets ran over by a bus, and that was the guy that you were depending on doing it.
Yeah.
You
So,
know
so we shouldn't promise the Shark versus Josh boxing event yet, right?
exactly. We think we can do it, but we don't know we can do it.
Hmm.
So we gotta keep on I mean, yeah, I mean, promises are good, but you don't need to promise everything because I mean, like I mean, we've seen
Yeah.
many cases of that. A lot in AAA, especially now with roadmaps. Here's our roadmap. We're going to do all this stuff, and then
Mm-hmm. Nothing happens.
3 months, 6 months, 12 months later. Oh well, the game did not sell up to expectations.
We're going to move
So
on.
all these things we promised, yeah, we're not going to
What
deliver on them.
What does the roadmap for Anthem look like at this point? I'd
Probably like
be
a very
Gordo to
very
it.
yeah, probably like a very barren dirt path with nothing on it.
Yeah.
About what it looks like.
And the same thing happened with Space Base DF9. They promised like 3 pages worth of features, and then they quietly removed them all when they stopped supporting the game.
Mm-hmm.
But we could certainly rant and ramble on for longer, but I think we'll wrap it up here for this week. So come back later tonight. We're going to be probably playing Shadow Hearts 2, maybe throwing some more XCOM. As always, you can find me on Twitter at JWBicer. There'll be a link to my Discord in the description down below. And people want to follow you, Shark. What are their options?
Well, there should be in the Recordicast a link to my Discord, as well as you can follow me on Twitter at Nexus Games INC. And people have seen some really exciting things that will be posted there at some point. I mean, you've seen them today, Josh.
Yeah.
Oscar/El Gordo and Mojo/Bodhai, or however you say that, Mojo. Seen it yesterday, and there's some pretty exciting things that's going to be coming there, and lots more. Lots more. I don't know when, but hashtag soon. We're apparently on Valve time at the moment, but hopefully that Valve time is going to end sometime this week because my artist is getting us a background done, so I don't have to use the a temporary asset that belongs to somebody else, because that would not look good putting out on my public Twitter.
Mm-hmm.
But hopefully soon we'll be having some good stuff go up there.
All right. Well, with that said, we're ending for this week. We'll be back next Sunday around 3:34 p.m. EST, and come back for daily discussions on game design here and on game wisdom, where we examine the art and science of games. Until next time, everybody, take care.